no matter what's going on, off the court, on the court. Great feeling, man. And we're going to win everything, baby.
Trayvon Tyler Anthony Duval, born August 3rd, 1998. No, Trayvon Duval's eye is not the reason he went undrafted and only played 3 games in the league. At least, I don't think you can point to that one issue and say that's what caused 30 NBA teams to pass on him twice or not give him much of a chance since. But I do have 3 good reasons why the first Duke one and done to ever go undrafted had his NBA issues. Because before all that, Duval was one of the best point guards in America, a 5-star recruit, McDonald's All-American, and depending on the recruiting service, either number 1 or number 2 point guard in his class. He was 6'3", extremely athletic, could get downhill almost whenever he wanted, and thought to have the physical tools of a future NBA point guard. He chose Duke, where the expectation was basically 1 year college basketball before moving on to the league. That part happened, the NBA part didn't, at least not exactly. Duval at Duke averaged 10 points, 5 assists, but struggled badly as a shooter, declared for the 2018 draft, and watched all 60 picks go by without hearing his name. He eventually made the NBA, but played just 3 games. What makes his story even more interesting today is something I didn't really understand when I first covered him 3 years ago. Duval had been dealing with a vision problem in his left eye, something Duke actually worked with him to improve. But even with that added context, there were bigger problems standing between Trevon Duval and the NBA career everyone expected. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Trayvon Duval is a 6'3" point guard from Newcastle, Delaware, who was considered a special basketball talent long before he ever arrived at Duke. He began high school at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, New Jersey, before transferring to Advanced Prep International in Dallas, where he averaged 16.8 points and 7 assists as a junior. For his senior year, Duval transferred again, this time to IMG Academy in Florida, one of the premier basketball programs in the country. There, he averaged 16.1 points and 7.5 assists while establishing himself as one of the best guards in high school basketball. He was explosive with the ball, had great size for the position, could finish above the rim, and was especially dangerous getting downhill in transition. He became a McDonald's All-American and Jordan Brand Classic selection, while rivals ranked him as the number 1 point guard in the 2017 class, and 247 Sports had him right behind Colin Sexton. Duval eventually chose Duke over schools like Kansas, Arizona, Baylor, and Seton Hall, joining one of the most talented recruiting classes in college basketball. And even on a loaded Duke team featuring Marvin Bagley, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., and senior Grayson Allen, Duval started 34 games. He averaged 10.3 points, 5.6 assists, and 1.5 steals while helping Duke reach the Elite 8. But while Bagley and Carter strengthened their NBA stock, Duval's season created more questions about his. His athleticism was obvious, but so were the weaknesses that would eventually follow him into the 2018 NBA draft. Stunt number 1, left college too early. The first growth stunt for Trayvon Duval was leaving college before he was ready for the NBA. Now I do understand why he left. Duval went to Duke with every intention of being a one-and-done player, and when you're a 5-star recruit and the number 1 point guard in the country who spent years hearing your name mentioned as a future NBA player, returning to school can almost feel like you're moving backwards. But by the end of his freshman season, Trayvon's situation had changed. He wasn't the lottery-level prospect people expected coming in. He averaged 10.3 points and 5.6 assists, temporarily lost his starting spot, and toward the end of the season, Grayson Allen was handling more of the point guard responsibilities than he was. NBA executives were already questioning Duval's shooting and decision-making, with ESPN reporting before the draft that he was viewed more as a second-round prospect. To his credit, Trayvon finished the season playing some of his best basketball, including 20 points and 6 assists against Kansas in the Elite 8, and Coach K specifically mentioned the improvement he showed late in the year when Duval declared. But I still think leaving was a mistake. Trayvon was 19 years old with NBA athleticism, but his actual point guard skills needed more time. Even Coach K suggested he return. Scouts questioned whether he could consistently run an offense, his decision-making was a bit reckless, and he turned the ball over on nearly a quarter of his possessions during ACC play. The problem is, staying at Duke wasn't exactly simple either. Duke already had Trey Jones coming in, along with RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, and Zion Williamson, meaning Trayvon could have returned to an even more crowded situation. So maybe transferring would have been something to consider. Find a program willing to put the ball in his hands, spend another year developing as a true point guard, and most importantly, give NBA teams more evidence that he was improving. Even though transferring does give a negative stigma for a guy in his position. Instead, Duval entered the draft as a project at the exact position where teams need someone they can trust with the basketball. He had the body, speed, athleticism, and potential of an NBA guard, but not enough polish to guarantee a team would invest a draft pick in him. And once he went undrafted, everything else became much harder. Stunt number 2 is and was never a good shooter. The second issue for Trevon Duval was easily the biggest weakness in his game, and that was his inability to shoot the basketball, and even today his form still seems unnatural. You could survive as a point guard without being Steph Curry, especially with the ability Trayvon had, but you still had to make defenses respect you. With Duval, they didn't. At Duke, he shot just 29% from 3, and even more concerning to me, 59.6% from the foul line. That free throw percentage matters because nobody is guarding you at the line. So this wasn't simply Duke having too many scorers or Trayvon not getting enough shots. Shooting was a legitimate weakness. His mechanics always looked a little awkward. His confidence from outside never seemed completely there. Defenders could play off him and take away some of what made him special, and even with the ability of hindsight, he has shot poorly since leaving Duke in every league he's been in. Once you give a point guard that's explosive space, you're basically telling him we'd rather have you shoot than allow you to get downhill. And that brings us to his eye, because this is where I think we have to be fair to Trayvon. Duval had a vision problem with his left eye while at Duke, and reports at the time said the school was working with him on his vision. So could that have affected his shooting? Absolutely. Depth perception and tracking the basket are obviously important, and I'm not going to pretend that playing with compromised vision couldn't make an already difficult skill even harder. But do I think the eye alone is why he went undrafted? No, because NBA scouts weren't only concerned about his jumper. They also questioned the decision-making, turnovers, and defensive awareness. Sports Illustrated noted that he turned the ball over on nearly a quarter of his possessions during ACC play and needed major improvement as a shooter. And this is why I don't want the eye condition to become an excuse for everything that happened. Trayvon was an incredible athlete who could get to the rim and create for others, but the NBA was already moving toward a style where guards who couldn't shoot were becoming harder and harder to build around. Even if his vision was perfect, 29% from 3 and 59% from the foul line would have scared teams away. The eye may have made the problem more difficult to overcome, but the problem itself was very real. Stunt number 3, never developed enough. And the final growth stunt for Trevon Duval is that after going undrafted, his professional career never really gave NBA teams a reason to believe they made a mistake. Now that doesn't mean Trayvon hadn't had a career. He has. He signed a 2-way deal with Milwaukee as a rookie and averaged 12.5 points with the Wisconsin Herd, which was enough to eventually get him into 3 games with the Bucks. Those 3 games, totaling just 6 minutes, remain the only NBA games he's played. And since then, Trayvon has spent years bouncing between the G League and overseas, still trying to work his way back. The problem is, at no point did he become so good at those levels that NBA teams had to reconsider him. In 2019-20 with Iowa, he averaged just 6.9 points. He later had better seasons with Grand Rapids, averaging over 12 points and 5 assists in 21-22, and 12 points the following season, but the same problem from Duke was still there. He shot 25.8% from 3 in 21-22 and 23.8% the next year. Those numbers are important because this was supposed to be the time where Trayvon developed the weakness that originally held him back. Instead, years into his professional career, shooting was still limiting what he could be. Duval eventually played in Canada, Dominican Republic, Turkey, and other foreign leagues. Most recently overseas, he averaged 8.7 points and 4.5 assists in 6 FIBA Euro Cup games for Saba. Then in March of 2026, at 27 years old, he returned to the G League with the Greensboro Swarm. And honestly, I think that tells a lot about Trayvon's story. 8 years after going undrafted, he's still fighting for an opportunity, which I respect, but his professional career also makes it difficult to argue that NBA teams completely missed on him. Across 158 career G League games, Duval has averaged around 10.5 points, 3.6 assists, and shot just under 25% from 3. Compare that to the career numbers of, let's say, a Mac McClung. Those aren't numbers screaming that an NBA-level point guard was being overlooked. So whether his eye affected his development or not, Trayvon still had opportunities after Duke to prove he belonged. Unfortunately, the weaknesses that pushed him out of the draft never improved enough to bring him back. All in all, I don't think Trevon Duval's eye is the reason he couldn't stick in the NBA. Do I think it may have affected his development, especially as a shooter? Absolutely. And knowing about his vision issues today gives me more sympathy for some of the weaknesses I criticized when I first covered his story. But Trayvon's problem went beyond that. He left Duke after one season when his game clearly needed more time, entered the NBA as a point guard who couldn't consistently shoot, and then never developed enough professionally to force his way back into the league. Duval has continued playing basketball for almost 8 years since going undrafted. He's been through multiple G League organizations and played overseas, and even made his way back to the G League in 2026. So the opportunities to improve and prove teams wrong were there. Unfortunately, the shooting never became reliable enough, and his overall production never reached a level where NBA teams had to reconsider him. I still respect the fact that Trayvon is playing and still chasing that opportunity at 28 years old. Most players would have moved on a long time ago, but sometimes an elite high school prospect simply doesn't become an elite professional player. Trevon Duval had the athleticism and potential. His eye certainly made his story more complicated, but ultimately there were too many holes in his game for me to say that's what kept him from the NBA. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.